The gunman's body hit the floor before anyone heard the shot. 10 armed men had just stormed Redwood Medical Center through the ER bay doors. Military boots, black tactical gear, faces hidden behind balaclavas. Patients screamed. Doctors dove behind desks. Security guards fumbled for radios that wouldn't work. But the new nurse, the quiet one everyone ignored, the rookie they'd been mocking for 3 weeks, didn't even blink. She stood in the center of the chaos, one hand steady at her side, the other holding a pistol no one knew she had. The lead gunman staggered back, clutching his shoulder, blood spreading fast. His teammates spun toward her, weapons rising, and she smiled. Not nervous, not scared, like she'd been waiting for this her entire life. If you want to see how the nurse they underestimated became the only thing standing between life and death, stay until the end. Drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. And hit subscribe, because what happens next will leave you speechless. Phoenix in July was a furnace, and Redwood Medical Center sat right in the middle of it, a sprawling level 1 trauma hospital that never slept, never stopped, and never forgave mistakes. The ER was a war zone on a normal Tuesday. Gunshot wounds, overdoses, heat exhaustion, car wrecks. It all came through those double doors, and the staff moved like soldiers in scrubs, hardened by repetition and routine. Lena Ward had been there 3 weeks, and she was already invisible. Not because she was bad at her job. She wasn't. She was clean, efficient, didn't waste words or time, but she didn't laugh at the right jokes, didn't join the gossip circles, didn't flirt with the attending physicians or brown-nosed the charge nurse. She just showed up, did the work, and left. That made her forgettable. Worse, it made her a target. "Hey, rookie." The voice belonged to Monica Valdez, a senior ER nurse with 15 years under her belt and a permanent scowl. She didn't look up from the tablet she was holding. "Bed 12 needs vitals. Try not to take all day." Lena nodded. "Got it. And don't forget to chart it this time. Last shift you missed 2 entries." "I didn't miss anything." Monica's eyes snapped up, sharp and irritated. "Excuse me?" "I charted everything. Check the system again." "I did check." "Then check harder." Silence dropped over the nurses' station like a curtain. 2 other nurses stopped mid-conversation. A resident pretended to read a chart but was clearly listening. Monica's jaw tightened, her fingers gripping the tablet a little too hard. "You've got an attitude problem, Ward." "I've got a memory. There's a difference." Monica stepped closer, lowering her voice to something dangerous. "You think because you transferred in from some VA hospital nobody's heard of, you can talk to me like that?" "I think I did my job. If the system didn't register it, that's an IT problem, not a me problem. Everything's a you problem until you prove otherwise. And so far, you haven't." Lena didn't argue. She just turned and walked toward bed 12, her movements calm and deliberate, like she was walking through a park instead of a hostile room. Behind her, Monica muttered something under her breath. Someone laughed. Lena didn't react. She'd heard worse. Bed 12 was a middle-aged man with chest pain, sweating through his gown, eyes wide with panic. Lena pulled the blood pressure cuff from the wall mount and wrapped it around his arm without a word. "Am I having a heart attack?" he asked, voice shaking. "We're going to find out. Stay still." The cuff inflated. Numbers blinked onto the monitor. Lena watched them settle, then made a note on her tablet. Blood pressure elevated, but not critical. Pulse fast, but steady. Oxygen sat good. She leaned in slightly, her tone softening just enough. "You're not dying right now. The doctor's going to order some tests and we'll know more in a few minutes. Try to breathe slow. In through your nose, out through your mouth." He nodded, exhaling shakily. "Thank you." She didn't smile, but her voice stayed level. "You're going to be fine." As she turned to leave, she caught sight of someone across the ER, a man in a visitor's chair near the intake desk, baseball cap pulled low, hands folded in his lap. He wasn't filling out paperwork, wasn't talking to anyone, just sitting, watching. Lena's eyes lingered on him for half a second longer than necessary, then she moved on. The shift dragged. It always did. Hours blurred together in a haze of vitals, medications, IV starts, wound dressings, and the constant hum of machines and voices. Lena kept her head down, stayed efficient, avoided Monica and the others as much as possible. But she noticed things. She always noticed things. The man in the baseball cap left after 20 minutes, didn't check in, didn't ask questions, Just walked out through the main entrance like he'd seen enough. The security guard at the ER entrance kept glancing at his phone instead of watching the doors. Two orderlies were having a hushed conversation near the medication room, and one of them looked nervous, like he was being told something he didn't want to hear. None of it added up to anything. Not yet. But Lena filed it away, the way she always did. By 9 p.m., the ER had hit a lull. A few patients waiting for labs, a couple of drunks sleeping it off in the hallway beds, and one elderly woman with a broken wrist who kept insisting she didn't need pain meds. Lena was restocking a supply cart when Dr. Aaron Cho appeared beside her, coffee in hand, looking exhausted. "You've been quiet tonight," he said. "I'm quiet every night." "True, but usually Monica's louder about it." Lena didn't smile. "She's got better things to do." "Does she?" Cho took a sip of his coffee, studying her. He was one of the few people in the ER who didn't treat her like a ghost. Maybe because he'd been the ghost once, too. An immigrant kid who worked his way through med school and still got questioned by patients who didn't think he looked like a doctor. "You don't have to take her crap, you know." "I don't." "Could have fooled me." Lena glanced at him, her expression flat. "I'm not here to make friends." "Yeah, I got that. But you could at least make allies." "Why?" Cho laughed, short and tired. "Because it's easier." "Easier isn't always better." He shook his head, but there was something like respect in his eyes. "You're a weird one, Ward." "I've heard." He walked off, and Lana went back to her cart. But as she reached for a box of gauze, her hand stilled. Across the ER, near the ambulance bay, the automatic doors slid open, and 3 men stepped inside. They weren't patients, weren't paramedics. They wore dark jackets despite the heat, hands tucked into pockets, faces calm, but wrong. Too calm. Too deliberate. Lena's pulse didn't spike. It steadied. She turned her back to them, still stalking the cart, but her reflection in the glass cabinet door showed her everything. They split up. One moved toward the waiting room, one toward the hallway leading to the ICU. The third stayed near the entrance, positioning himself between the doors and the main ER floor. A perimeter. Lena finished loading the cart, then rolled it toward the nurse's station, angling herself so she could see all 3 men in her peripheral vision. Monica was typing something into the computer, annoyed as usual. "Valdez?" Monica didn't look up. "What? Where's security?" "Bathroom, probably. Why?" "Radio them." Now Monica looked up, irritated. "Why would I—" "Do it. Now." Something in Lena's voice made Monica pause. She picked up the radio clipped to her scrubs, pressed the button. Static crackled. "Larry, you there?" Nothing. She tried again. "Larry, respond." Still nothing. Monica frowned, glancing toward the entrance. "That's weird. He was just—" The lights went out. Not just dimmed, killed. The entire ER plunged into darkness, backup generators slow to kick in, and for 3 seconds the only sound was the collective gasp of 20 people realizing something was very, very wrong. Then the emergency lights flickered on, pale, sickly red, and the screaming started. The man near the entrance pulled a submachine gun from under his jacket. The one in the waiting room did the same. The third, near the ICU hallway, raised his weapon and fired a single shot into the ceiling. Plaster exploded. Patients dropped to the floor. A nurse shrieked. "Nobody moves!" the gunman shouted. His voice was steady, practiced. "Hands where we can see them. Phones on the ground. Now!" People scrambled to obey, fumbling for their phones, dropping to their knees. Monica's face had gone white, her hands trembling as she set her phone on the desk. Across the room, Dr. Cho stood frozen, his coffee cup still in his hand. Lena didn't move. She stood beside the supply cart, hands loose at her sides, eyes tracking each gunman in sequence, counting, assessing. The one at the entrance was the leader, older, more controlled. The one in the waiting room was nervous, finger too tight on the trigger. The one near the ICU was scanning faces, looking for someone. They weren't here to rob the place. They were here for a target. "Everybody stay down," the leader barked. "We're looking for someone. Cooperate. And nobody gets hurt." Lena's jaw tightened. Nobody gets hurt was a lie. It was always a lie. The nervous gunmen moved through the rows of patients, checking faces, yanking people's heads up by their hair. An elderly man whimpered. A woman sobbed. The gunman ignored them, moving faster, frustrated. "Not here," he muttered into a radio. "Checking the back." Lena's mind raced. 10 men total, if the initial breach was coordinated. 3 in the ER, which meant 7 more spread through the building. ICU, surgical wing, administrative floors. They'd jammed communications, killed the main power, and positioned themselves at choke points. This wasn't a hit, it was an extraction, or an execution. The leader stepped forward, raising his voice. "We're looking for a patient admitted 2 hours ago. Gunshot wound, male, 20s. Anyone tells us where he is, you walk out of here. Anyone lies—" He didn't finish. He didn't have to. Lena's eyes flicked toward the trauma bay. Room 2. That's where they'd taken the GSW. Young guy, barely conscious, cops stationed outside until an hour ago when they got pulled for another call. Witness protection, maybe. Or someone who saw something he shouldn't have. The gunman near the ICU was moving toward the trauma bay now, his weapon raised. Lena's hand drifted toward the supply cart. Gauze, tape, scissors, IV tubing, nothing useful. Except her fingers closed around a scalpel she'd left on the bottom shelf earlier. Small. Sharp. Hidden in her palm. Monica was still on her knees, shaking, tears streaming down her face. Cho was pressed against the wall, hands raised. The patients were scattered, terrified. And Lena was still standing. The leader noticed. He turned toward her, his weapon swinging in her direction. "You, on the ground, now!" Lena looked at him, didn't blink, didn't move. "I said down." "I heard you." His finger twitched toward the trigger. "You want to die today? Do you?" The question hung in the air, absurd and dangerous. Monica's eyes went wide. Cho mouthed something, "What are you doing?" But Lena ignored him. The gunman stepped closer, his voice dropping to something cold. "You think you're brave? I think you're sloppy." "Sloppy?" He laughed, but it was forced. "Lady, we own this building. For now." Something in her tone made him hesitate. Just for a second, but it was enough. Lena's eyes shifted past him toward the main entrance, and her expression didn't change, like she was seeing something he wasn't. He turned to look. Nothing was there. And in that half-second of distraction, Lena moved. Not toward him, away. She dropped behind the supply cart, using it as cover, and the scalpel was already in her hand. The leader spun back, raising his weapon, but she was faster. She kicked the cart forward, sending it rolling into his knees. He stumbled, cursed, and fired, bullets punching through metal and plastic, supplies exploding in a shower of gauze and saline. But Lena was already gone. She'd rolled left, coming up beside a crash cart, using it as a shield. The second gunman, the nervous one, swung his weapon toward her, finger jerking the trigger. The crash cart took 3 rounds, the defibrillator sparking and dying. Lena didn't flinch. She grabbed the cart's handle and shoved it forward with everything she had, slamming it into the gunman's chest. He went down hard, gasping, and his weapon skittered across the floor. The third gunman opened fire from the ICU hallway, and this time Lena had nowhere to go. She dove behind the nurse's station, bullets chewing through the desk, wood and glass exploding around her. Monica screamed, curling into a ball. Cho hit the floor, covering his head. Lena stayed low, breathing controlled, mind racing. 3 hostiles in the ER, 7 more upstairs. No backup. No weapons except a scalpel. And a building full of terrified people who would die if she didn't do something. She closed her eyes for half a second, letting the chaos wash over her, filtering it into data. Gunfire patterns. Reload times. Positions. Angles. Then she opened her eyes and moved. She came up from behind the desk, scalpel flashing, and threw it. Not at the gunman in the hallway, at the light fixture above his head. The blade struck true, shattering the bulb and plunging that section of the ER into darkness. The gunman fired blind, bullets punching into walls and ceiling, and Lena used the noise as cover. She sprinted low and fast, crossing the open floor in 3 seconds, and hit the hallway at full speed. The gunman heard her coming and turned, but she was already inside his guard. She grabbed his weapon with both hands, forcing the barrel up and away, and drove her knee into his groin. He doubled over, gasping, and she ripped the gun from his hands, reversed it, and slammed the stock into his temple. He dropped. Lena caught the weapon before it hit the ground, checked the magazine, half empty, and spun back toward the ER. The leader was back on his feet, bleeding from where the cart had clipped him, and he was dragging Monica up by her hair, using her as a shield. "Drop it!" he shouted. "Drop it or she dies!" Monica was sobbing, hands clawing uselessly at his arm. Her eyes found Lena's, wide and pleading. Lena didn't drop the weapon. She raised it, sighting down the barrel, and her voice was ice. "Let her go. I'll kill her." "No, you won't. Try me." Lena's finger rested on the trigger, steady as stone. "You came here for a target. You're not leaving with one, and you're sure as hell not leaving with her." The leader's eyes narrowed. "Who the hell are you?" "Someone you should have stayed away from." For a moment, they stared at each other across the wreckage of the ER. Then the leader's radio crackled, a voice, panicked and breathless. "Team 2, we've got military inbound. I repeat, military." The transmission cut off in a burst of gunfire. The leader's face went pale. He looked at Lena, then at the weapon in her hands, then back at her face. And whatever he saw there made him let go of Monica. She stumbled forward, gasping, and Lena caught her with one arm, never taking her eyes off the gunman. "On the ground," Lena said quietly. "Now." He hesitated, then dropped to his knees, hands behind his head. Outside, the sound of engines roared closer, heavy, fast, military grade. And through the shattered entrance, Lena saw them, armored vehicles, soldiers in black fatigues, moving with the kind of precision that came from training and experience. The rear doors exploded inward, not figuratively, literally. The double doors blew off their hinges in a controlled breach, and suddenly the ER was flooded with soldiers, rifles up, voices barking orders, moving in perfect sync. They swept the room in seconds, securing the remaining gunmen, checking for threats, establishing a perimeter. And through it all, Lena just stood there, weapon lowered but still in her hands, watching the organized chaos with the calm of someone who'd seen it all before. A woman stepped through the smoke and debris, mid-40s, sharp-eyed, wearing a uniform with insignia that said Lieutenant Colonel. She scanned the room, taking in the bodies, the blood, the terrified staff, and then her eyes locked onto Lena. She stopped dead. "Ward?" Lena's expression didn't change, but her voice was quiet, steady. "Ma'am." The lieutenant colonel stared at her for a long moment, like she was seeing a ghost. Then she crossed the room in 3 long strides, ignoring everyone else. "What the hell are you doing here?" "Working." "Working." The officer's tone was flat, disbelieving. "You're supposed to be dead." "I got better." "This isn't funny, Ward." "Wasn't joking." The officer exhaled hard, rubbing her temple like she had a migraine forming. Around them, soldiers were zip-tying the gunmen, checking vitals, securing weapons. One of them approached the lieutenant colonel, saluting sharply. "Ma'am? Building's not clear. We've got reports of hostiles on the 2nd and 3rd floors, ICU wing and administrative." The officer cursed under her breath. "How many?" "Unknown, but they're dug in." She turned back to Lena. "Where's the witness?" "Trauma room 2, 2nd floor." "Is he alive?" "He was 20 minutes ago." "Will he still be?" Lena's jaw tightened. "Not if you don't move fast." The officer nodded, turning to her team. "2nd floor, ICU wing. Priority is the witness, alive. Rules of engagement, weapons free on confirmed hostiles. Go." The soldiers moved like water, fast and silent, disappearing up the stairwell. The lieutenant colonel stayed behind, and when she looked back at Lena, there was something complicated in her expression, frustration, concern, and something else. "You shouldn't be here," she said quietly. "Neither should they." "That's not what I meant." Lena finally met her eyes fully, and there was no fear in them. No hesitation, just cold, controlled certainty. "I know." Monica was still on the floor, staring at Lena like she'd just grown a second head. Cho had managed to sit up, his back against the wall, his face pale and shocked. Other staff members were emerging from their hiding places, whispering, pointing, trying to make sense of what they'd just seen. The rookie nurse, the quiet one, the girl they'd been mocking for 3 weeks, holding a submachine gun like she was born with it. Upstairs, gunfire erupted, short, controlled bursts, shouting, the sound of doors being kicked in. Then, after what felt like an eternity, silence. One of the soldiers came back down the stairs breathing hard. "Ma'am, witness is secure. 4 hostiles neutralized, 3 in custody. Building's clear." The lieutenant colonel nodded. "Casualties?" "2 on our side, non-critical. 3 staff members injured, stable. Medics are with them now." "Good. Lock it down. Nobody in or out until we've secured the perimeter and debriefed everyone." "Yes, ma'am." The soldier moved off, and the officer turned back to Lena. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then the officer reached out and carefully took the weapon from Lena's hands. "You know I have to file a report on this," she said quietly. "I know. They're going to ask questions. Let them. Ward, I did what I had to do. That's all the report needs to say." The officer's expression softened, just slightly. "You know it's not that simple." "It never is." From across the room, Monica finally found her voice. It came out shaky, thin, but determined. "Who are you?" Lena turned to look at her. For a long moment, she didn't answer. Then quietly, "I'm a nurse." "Bullshit." Monica's voice cracked, but she pushed herself to her feet, still trembling. "I've worked with nurses for 15 years. Nurses don't do that. They don't move like that. They don't—" "I'm a nurse," Lena repeated. Her voice was firm, final. "That's all you need to know." "The hell it is." Dr. Cho stood up, leaning heavily against the wall. His voice was steadier than Monica's, but there was an edge to it. "You just took down 3 armed men like it was nothing. You handled that weapon like you've done this before. A lot." Lena didn't answer. "So I'm going to ask you the same question Monica did," Cho continued. "Who are you, really?" The lieutenant colonel stepped forward, her voice carrying authority. "That's classified." "Classified?" Monica's voice pitched higher. "We almost died. We deserve to know." "You deserve to go home alive," the officer cut her off. "Which you are, because of her. That's all you need to know." Monica opened her mouth to argue, but one look at the officer's face shut her down. Cho just stared at Lena, his expression unreadable. Outside, more vehicles arrived. Ambulances, police cars, federal agents in suits. The circus was starting. News helicopters circled overhead, their searchlights cutting through the smoke still rising from the building. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed. The lieutenant colonel gestured to one of her soldiers. "Get me a perimeter. No press, no unauthorized personnel. And get these people somewhere safe where we can debrief them properly." "Yes, ma'am." As the staff were gently herded toward a secured area, Monica kept looking back at Lena. So did Cho. So did everyone who'd seen what happened, the quiet nurse, the rookie, the girl they'd ignored. She'd just saved all their lives, and none of them had any idea who she really was. The lieutenant colonel waited until the room was mostly clear, then turned to Lena, lowering her voice. "You can't keep doing this." "Doing what?" "Running, hiding, pretending you're someone you're not." Lena's expression was unreadable. "I'm not pretending." "Ward, I'm a nurse. That's not a lie. It's not the whole truth either." "It's enough." The officer studied her for a long moment, then sighed. "They're going to want you back. You know that, right? After this? After what you just did? They're going to come for you. Let them try. You can't fight them forever. Watch me." The officer shook her head, something like sadness crossing her face. "You were the best we had. You still are. But this—" She gestured at the wreckage of the ER. "This isn't sustainable. Eventually, it's going to catch up with you." "Maybe." Lena's voice was quiet. "But not today." One of the soldiers approached, holding a tablet. "Ma'am, we've got a situation." "What kind?" "One of the hostiles is asking to make a deal. Says he'll talk if we guarantee protection." "Protection from who?" The soldier hesitated. "He won't say, but he's terrified. Keeps saying if they find out he talked, he's dead." The lieutenant colonel's eyes narrowed. "They who?" "That's the problem, ma'am. He won't say that either. Just keep saying they'll know. They always know." Lena and the officer exchanged a look. Then Lena spoke, her voice low. "It's not random." "What?" "This wasn't a random hit. The coordination, the timing, the way they moved, it was too clean. Someone with serious resources set this up. Someone inside? Maybe. Or someone with access to inside information. The officer cursed softly. You think this goes higher than we thought? I think 10 heavily armed men don't just walk into a hospital and take it over without someone looking the other way. The soldier was still waiting, tablet in hand. The officer glanced at it, then back at Lena. You want to sit in on the interrogation? No. No? I'm done. Lena's voice was flat. I did my job. The witness is safe. The building's secure. That's all I signed up for. You didn't sign up for anything. You're a civilian now. Exactly. So let me go home. The officer looked like she wanted to argue, but something in Lena's expression stopped her. Instead, she just nodded slowly. Fine. But you're not going anywhere until we debrief you. And I mean a real debrief, Ward. Everything that happened tonight. Everything you saw. Everything you did. Fine. And after that, the officer paused, choosing her words carefully. After that, you and I are going to have a conversation about what happens next. There is no next. I'm a nurse. I work here. That's the end of it. You really believe that? Lena didn't answer. She just turned and walked back toward the nurse's station, stepping carefully over debris and broken glass. Her scrubs were torn, stained with blood that wasn't hers. Her hands were steady. Her expression was calm. But inside, something was shifting. Because the officer was right. This wasn't over. It couldn't be. Not after tonight. Not after what she'd done, what she'd shown. The carefully constructed walls she'd built around her new life had just come crashing down, and there was no putting them back up. The people she'd worked with for 3 weeks now knew she was more than she appeared. The people she'd left behind now knew where to find her. And somewhere out there, the people who'd sent 10 gunmen into a hospital were asking themselves one very important question. Who the hell was Lena Ward? She reached the nurse's station and stopped, looking at the mess. Shattered computer screens, bullet holes in the walls, blood on the floor, paper scattered everywhere. Monica's abandoned tablet still sitting on the desk, screen cracked but still lit. Lena picked it up, brushed off the glass, and opened the charting system. Bed 12. The chest pain patient. She'd never finished his vitals. She pulled up his chart and started typing, her fingers moving quickly, efficiently, entering the data from memory. Blood pressure, pulse, oxygen saturation, respiratory rate, everything documented, everything precise. Behind her, the lieutenant colonel watched in silence. You're really going to chart right now? She finally asked. He still needs care. Ward? His name is Marcus. He's 53. He's a teacher. He has 2 kids and a wife who's 8 months pregnant, and he thought he was dying. Lena didn't look up from the tablet. He deserves to know someone still cares whether he makes it or not. The officer opened her mouth, then closed it. After a moment, she just nodded. Yeah, okay. Lena finished the charting, set the tablet down, and finally looked up. Her eyes found the trauma bay, where soldiers were still stationed, securing the witness. Then they drifted to the hallway where the gunmen had entered, then to the scattered staff members being questioned by federal agents, and finally to her own reflection in a broken window. She looked tired, older than her 29 years, like she'd lived 3 lifetimes and was carrying all of them at once. They're going to ask you to come back, the lieutenant colonel said quietly. You know that, right? I know. And if you say no, they'll ask harder. And if you still say no? Lena's expression didn't change. Then they'll stop asking. The officer studied her for a long moment. You think you can go back to normal after this? Back to charting vitals and starting IVs and pretending you're just another nurse? I am just another nurse. No, you're not. And deep down, you know it. Lena turned away, looking out at the chaos of the ER, at the soldiers and the agents and the scared staff members, at the broken doors and the blood stains and the evidence markers being placed by forensic teams, at the life she'd tried to build, now shattered beyond repair. Maybe, she said quietly, but I'm going to try anyway. The lieutenant colonel didn't respond. She just watched as Lena walked away, heading toward the debrief area, her shoulders straight and her head high, like a soldier, like someone who'd been through hell and came out the other side, like someone who wasn't done fighting, no matter how much she wanted to be. And in the wreckage of Redline Medical Center, surrounded by the evidence of violence and chaos and a battle that should never have happened, one truth became crystal clear. Lena Ward was never going to be invisible again. The debrief room was a converted storage closet on the first floor, hastily cleared of supplies and outfitted with folding chairs and a single table. Lena sat with her back to the wall, hands folded in her lap, while a federal agent named Briggs asked her the same questions 5 different ways. Walk me through it again. When did you first notice the suspects? 9:14. 3 men entered through the ambulance bay. And you knew they were hostile how? Wrong clothes for the heat, hands in pockets, perimeter formation. Briggs scribbled notes, his pen scratching across a yellow legal pad. Most people wouldn't notice that. Most people aren't paying attention. But you were. Always. He looked up, studying her face. Mid-50s, gray at the temples, the kind of weathered look that came from too many late nights and bad coffee. Why? Habit. From where? Lena didn't answer. Briggs leaned back in his chair, tapping his pen against the pad. You know, I ran your background before coming in here. Took me about 10 minutes. Want to know what I found? Not particularly. 3 years at County General in Albuquerque. Before that, 2 years at a VA clinic in Denver. Before that, he paused, watching her reaction. Nothing. No nursing school records, no prior employment, no digital footprint before 6 years ago. It's like you didn't exist. People move. Records get lost. Not like this, they don't. This is scrubbed. Professional grade scrubbed. Lena met his eyes, her expression blank. Are we done? Not even close. Briggs leaned forward, lowering his voice. I've been doing this job for 23 years. I know what a ghost looks like. And you, Miss Ward, are the real deal. So here's what I think happened. You weren't always a nurse. You were something else. Something that required the kind of training I saw on those security cameras. What did the cameras show? You already know. She did. The feed would have caught her taking down 3 armed men with minimal effort, handling a weapon like she'd been doing it her whole life, moving through chaos like it was choreographed. It would have shown everything except the why. I did what I had to do, Lena said quietly. That's all. That's never all. Before she could respond, the door opened and Lieutenant Colonel Vance stepped inside. She looked at Briggs, then at Lena, and something unspoken passed between the 2 women. Agent Briggs, I need the room. Ma'am, I'm in the middle of... I don't care. Out! Briggs opened his mouth to argue, thought better of it, and gathered his notes. As he passed Vance, he muttered something under his breath. She ignored him, waiting until the door clicked shut before turning to Lena. He's not going to let this go. I know. The footage is already circulating. Homeland Security, FBI, even some 3-letter agencies I can't talk about. They all want to know who you are. What did you tell them? Nothing. Yet. Vance pulled out a chair and sat down, her uniform crisp despite the chaos of the night. But that won't hold forever. Eventually, someone's going to dig deep enough to find what I found. Lena's jaw tightened. Which is? That you're a ghost for a reason. That 6 years ago, Operational Detachment Delta lost one of its best combat medics in a black site raid gone wrong. Officially, she died. Unofficially, Vance gestured at Lena. She's sitting in a hospital in Phoenix pretending to be a civilian. I am a civilian. No, you're on extended leave. There's a difference. Not to me, Vance sighed, rubbing her temples. They're going to want you back, Lena. After tonight, after what you did, they're going to pull every string they have to bring you in. Let them. You can't fight the entire Department of Defense. I can try. For a moment, Vance just looked at her. Then quietly, why did you leave? Lena's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind her eyes. Something dark. Because I was done. Done with what? Everything. Vance waited, but Lena didn't elaborate. The silence stretched between them, heavy and uncomfortable, until finally Vance stood. Get some rest. We'll talk more in the morning. I have a shift at 7. You're joking. I'm serious. Vance stared at her in disbelief. Lena, this hospital just turned into a crime scene. Half the ER is cordoned off. There won't be a shift to work. Then I'll help with cleanup. Why? Because it's my job. Your job is— Vance stopped herself, shaking her head. You know what? Fine. Do whatever you want. But this conversation isn't over. She left, and Lena was alone again. The room felt smaller now, the walls pressing in. She closed her eyes, letting her head rest against the cold concrete, and for the first time in hours allowed herself to breathe. It didn't help. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind the familiar ache of old injuries and older memories. Her shoulder throbbed where she'd slammed into the crash cart. Her knuckles were bruised from the fight. And deep in her chest, in that place she'd tried so hard to bury, something was stirring. The part of her that had been trained to hurt people was waking up. She'd thought she could leave it behind. Thought she could trade combat boots for scrubs, battlefields for hospital floors, and somehow become someone new. Someone normal. But normal people didn't disarm gunmen. Normal people didn't move through firefights like they were muscle memory. Normal people didn't look at chaos and see patterns, angles, kill zones. Normal people weren't broken the way she was. A knock on the door pulled her back. She opened her eyes to find Dr. Cho standing in the doorway, holding 2 cups of coffee. Thought you might need this, he said. Lena took the cup, nodding her thanks. Cho sat down across from her, wincing slightly as he settled into the chair. His left arm was in a sling, minor shrapnel from the firefight. How's the arm? Lena asked. I'll live. Thanks to you. I didn't do anything. Bullshit. Cho's voice was quiet but firm. You saved my life. Monica's too. Probably everyone in that ER. Lena sipped her coffee. It was terrible. Hospital vending machine terrible. She drank it anyway. I saw you fight, Cho continued. I saw how you moved, how you handled that weapon. That's not something you learn in nursing school. No, it's not. So where did you learn it? Lena didn't answer. Cho leaned forward, his expression serious. Look, I don't care what you were before. I don't care what secrets you're carrying. But I need to know one thing. Are we safe? Is whatever you're running from going to come back and put everyone here in danger? The question hit harder than Lena expected. She set down her coffee, meeting his eyes. I don't know. That's not reassuring. It's honest. Cho studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay, I can work with honest. Can you? I'm going to have to. He stood, adjusting his sling. For what it's worth, Ward, I'm glad you were here tonight. Whatever else you are, you're a damn good nurse and a better fighter. He left, and Lena was alone again with her terrible coffee and worse thoughts. By 3 a.m., the federal agents had finished their initial sweep and most of the staff had been released. Lena walked back through the ER, now lit by harsh fluorescent work lights, the emergency glow replaced by cold clinical brightness that made the destruction look even worse. Bloodstains marked the floor in dark patches. Bullet holes pocked the walls. Broken glass crunched under her shoes. Monica was sitting on one of the few intact chairs, still in her bloodstained scrubs, staring at nothing. Lena almost walked past, then stopped. You should go home. Monica looked up, her eyes red-rimmed. I can't. Why not? Because every time I close my eyes, I see that gun pointed at my face. Her voice cracked. I see him dragging me up, and I think I'm going to die. And then you— She stopped, swallowing hard. How did you do that? Training. What kind of training? The kind that doesn't matter anymore? Monica shook her head. It matters to me. You saved my life. I think I deserve to know who saved it. Lena sat down beside her, the chair creaking under her weight. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then quietly, I used to be a medic, military, special operations. I saw things, did things. She paused, choosing her words carefully. Things that don't translate well to civilian life, so I left, became a nurse, started over. And tonight I fell back on old habits. Monica was quiet for a moment, processing. Are you going back? To the military? No. Are you sure? Because the way that officer was looking at you, I'm sure. Monica studied her face, searching for something. You really don't want to go back, do you? I really don't. Then why do I get the feeling you don't have a choice? Because she was right. Lena knew it, even if she didn't want to admit it. The moment those gunmen walked through the door, the moment she picked up that weapon, the moment she let the old training take over, she'd opened a door she'd spent 6 years keeping locked, and now people were going to want her to walk back through it. "Go home, Monica," Lena said softly. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day." Monica stood, hesitated, then reached out and squeezed Lena's shoulder. "Thank you for everything." After she left, Lena sat alone in the wreckage. Around her, forensic teams worked quietly, photographing evidence, collecting shell casings, documenting the carnage. She watched them work, these people who studied violence from a distance, who analyzed and categorized and filed it away in neat reports. They didn't understand it. Not really. They'd never felt the weight of a weapon in their hands, never made the split-second calculation between life and death, never carried the memory of people who died because they were too slow, or too scared, or too human. They were lucky. A commotion near the entrance pulled her attention. Voices raised, someone arguing with security. Then a man in an expensive suit pushed through, flashing credentials that made the guards step aside. He was tall, sharp-featured, with salt and pepper hair and the kind of face that looked perpetually disappointed. He scanned the ER, found Lena, and walked straight toward her. "Miss Ward." "That's me. Marcus Hale, Defense Intelligence Agency." He didn't offer his hand. "We need to talk." "I already talked to the FBI." "I'm not the FBI." "I noticed." Hale pulled up a chair, sitting down without being invited. "I'm going to be direct. The men who attacked this hospital tonight were part of a larger operation. We've been tracking them for 8 months, trying to identify their network, their handlers, their targets. And tonight they broke protocol. They exposed themselves, lost people, left evidence, all for one witness upstairs." Hale leaned forward. "Which means that witness knows something worth dying for." Lena's expression didn't change. "What does this have to do with me?" "Everything. Because the moment you stepped in, the moment you took down those men, you became part of this operation, whether you like it or not. I'm not interested. You don't have a choice." "Everyone has a choice." Hale's smile was cold. "Not people with your background, not when national security is involved." Lena's jaw tightened. "Is that a threat?" "It's a reality check." Hale pulled out a tablet, tapped the screen, and turned it toward her. "This is the witness you saved tonight. His name is Danny Reeves, 26 years old. Low-level courier for what we think is a trafficking network moving everything from weapons to people. 3 weeks ago, he tried to get out. They shot him for it." The photo showed a young man, pale and scared, hooked up to monitors. Lena recognized him from earlier, the GSW in Trauma 2. "He wants to talk," Hale continued, "but he'll only talk to you." "Why me?" "Because you're the one who kept him alive. Because he saw what you did. Because right now, you're the only person in this building he trusts." Hale pocketed the tablet. "So here's the deal. You help us get his testimony. We make sure your past stays buried. You refuse, and I start making phone calls. By morning, every news outlet in the country will know the real story of Lena Ward." Lena stood slowly, her voice dropping to something dangerous. "You're blackmailing me." "I'm giving you an opportunity to do the right thing." "By threatening to destroy my life?" "Your life was already destroyed the moment you walked away from Delta. This is just me offering you a chance to rebuild it on better terms." For a long moment, Lena just stared at him. Then, without a word, she turned and walked away. "Where are you going?" Hale called after her. "To talk to the witness." "That's not—" "Wait, you're agreeing?" Lena stopped, looking back over her shoulder. "I'm doing my job. You want to call it something else? That's your problem." She didn't wait for his response. She just walked toward the elevators, her footsteps echoing in the empty hallway. The ICU was quieter than the ER, the chaos contained to a low hum of machines and hushed voices. Soldiers stood guard outside Trauma 2, but they stepped aside when Lena approached, recognition in their eyes. Inside, Danny Reeves lay propped up on pillows, his chest wrapped in bandages, his face pale but awake. He looked at her, and something like relief crossed his features. "You came. I'm a nurse. It's my job." "No." His voice was weak but insistent. "You came because you give a shit. That's different." Lena pulled up a chair sitting beside the bed. How are you feeling? Like I got shot. Fair. A ghost of a smile. The doctor said you saved my life. Twice. The doctor talks too much. He also said those guys who came for me, they're all dead or arrested. Most of them. Danny's expression darkened. Most isn't all. No, it's not. They're going to send more, aren't they? Lena didn't lie to him. Probably. Then I'm dead anyway. Not if you talk. He laughed, bitter and painful. Talk to who? The cops? The feds? They can't protect me. You saw what those guys were willing to do. Blow through a hospital. Kill anyone in their way. You think witness protection is going to stop them? I think staying silent guarantees they win. Danny closed his eyes, his breathing shallow. You don't understand. These people, they're connected. Police, politicians, judges. They know everything, control everything. I talk. I'm signing my own death warrant. You don't talk. You're already dead. Just slower. His eyes opened, meeting hers. You really believe that? I've seen how this works. You run, you hide. You think you can disappear, but they always find you. Always. The only way out is through. Through what? The truth. Danny was quiet for a long time, then softly. If I do this, if I tell them everything, will you stay? Will you make sure they don't kill me? Lena hesitated. That wasn't a promise she could make, wasn't a promise she should make. But looking at this kid, scared and alone and trying to do the right thing for once in his life, yeah, she said, I'll stay. Promise? Promise. Something in his expression shifted, relief maybe, or just resignation. Okay, I'll talk. But not to that Hale guy. He's a shark. Who then? You. I'm not an agent. I don't care. You're the only one I trust. Lena stood, looking down at him. Get some rest. We'll figure this out in the morning. As she turned to leave, his voice stopped her. Hey, that thing you did downstairs, taking out those guys like it was nothing. That's not normal, is it? No. Were you scared? The question caught her off guard. She turned back, studying his face. Young, damaged, looking for something to hold on to. Terrified, she admitted. You didn't look it. That's the job. What job? Being a badass? Being human. She paused at the door. Fear's not weakness, Danny. It's just information. What you do with it, that's what matters. She left him there, thinking about that, or maybe just trying to convince herself it was true. The hallway outside was empty except for the guards. Lena started toward the elevators, then stopped. Something felt wrong. Not danger wrong, just off. She turned slowly, scanning the hallway, the doors, the ceiling. There. A camera in the corner, its red light blinking. Standard security equipment, except the angle was wrong. It wasn't pointing at the hallway, it was pointing at Trauma 2. Lena walked over, studying it. The mounting bracket was new, screws still shiny, no dust. Recently installed. Maybe in the last few hours. Someone was watching, not the hospital, not the feds, someone else. She filed that information away and kept walking, her mind already working through implications. If someone had access to the security system, they knew where Danny was. They knew who was guarding him, and they'd know the moment he started talking. This wasn't over, not even close. Back in the ER, Hale was waiting. He looked annoyed. Did he talk? Not yet. But he will? Maybe? That's not good enough. Lena stopped in front of him, her voice flat. It's all you're getting tonight. He's traumatized, medicated, and barely holding it together. You push him now, he shuts down completely. So back off and let him breathe. Hale's jaw tightened. You don't give me orders. I'm not giving you orders. I'm giving you advice. Take it or don't. I don't care. But if you blow this because you're impatient, that's on you. She brushed past him, heading for the exit. Behind her, she heard him curse under his breath. She didn't care. She was done playing nice with people who thought power meant they could push everyone around. Outside, the night air was still hot, the kind of dry heat that stuck to skin and made breathing hard. News vans lined the street, reporters doing live shots, their faces serious and voices urgent. Lena avoided them, slipping through the parking lot toward her car. She was halfway there when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Then something made her hit accept. Hello? Silence. Then a voice. Male. Calm. Familiar in a way that made her blood run cold. Hello, Lena. She stopped walking. Who is this? You know who this is? She did. The voice belonged to someone she thought was dead. Someone who should have been dead. Someone she'd seen die 6 years ago in a black site operation that went sideways and took half her team with it. Captain James Riker. That's impossible, she breathed. Is it? His voice was different now, harder, colder. You disappeared, Lena. You left us to die. Did you think there wouldn't be consequences? I didn't. You were dead. You saw what they wanted you to see. And now? Now I see you. The line went dead. Lena stood frozen in the parking lot, her phone still pressed to her ear, her mind racing through impossibilities. Riker was dead. She'd seen his body, seen the explosion that took out the building, seen the aftermath. There was no way he survived. But that was his voice. She'd know it anywhere, which meant either she was losing her mind or everything she thought she knew about that night 6 years ago was a lie. Her phone buzzed again. A text. Same unknown number. Check the witness. Now. Lena ran. She hit the hospital doors at full speed, ignoring the shouts from security, taking the stairs 2 at a time. The ICU was 3 floors up. She made it in under a minute, bursting through the stairwell door and sprinting down the hallway. The guards outside Trauma 2 were gone. The door was open. Inside, Danny Reeves lay motionless in his bed, monitors still beeping, but his eyes were open and staring at nothing. A pillow lay on the floor beside him. Lena checked his pulse anyway. Nothing. He'd been smothered. Recently. Maybe in the last 5 minutes. She spun toward the hallway, looking for the guards, for witnesses, for anything. But the floor was empty. Everyone who should have been watching, gone. This wasn't random. This was coordinated, professional. And Lena had just been used as a distraction. Lena's hand was already on her phone, dialing security, when she heard the footsteps behind her. Fast, purposeful. She spun, dropping into a defensive stance, but it was just a nurse, young, terrified, backing away with her hands up. I just found him like that, I swear. Where are the guards? I don't know. They were here 10 minutes ago, and then, get help, now. The nurse ran. Lena moved to the window, scanning the parking lot below. 3 floors down, a black SUV was pulling away from the emergency entrance. No lights, no rush, just smooth and deliberate. She memorized the partial plate, then turned back to Danny's body. His face was peaceful, almost relieved, like dying was easier than whatever he'd been running from. She'd promised to keep him safe. She'd failed. The ICU erupted into chaos within seconds. Nurses flooding in, a code team with a crash cart even though everyone could see it was too late, and then Vance pushing through the crowd with soldiers flanking her. Everyone out, now! The staff scattered. Vance approached the bed, looked at Danny, then at Lena. What happened? Someone got to him. How? We had a perimeter, guards on every floor. And they walked right through it. Lena's voice was flat, controlled, but underneath was something sharp. This wasn't random. They knew exactly when to move, exactly where the gaps were. You think we have a leak? I think we had one the second this operation started, Vance cursed under her breath, pulling out her radio. All units, full lockdown. Nobody in or out until we've accounted for every person in this building. And someone find me those guards. 2 soldiers moved out. Vance stayed, studying Lena's face. You saw something. Black SUV, left through the ER entrance about 3 minutes ago. Partial plate. Lena rattled off the numbers. Find that vehicle, you find whoever did this. And if we don't, then we're dealing with people who know how to disappear. Before Vance could respond, Hale burst through the door, his face red with barely contained fury. He looked at Danny's body, then at Lena. You said he'd talk. He would have. Well, he's not talking now, is he? Lena stepped toward him, her voice dropping to something cold. Don't. Don't what? Point out that you had one job, keep him alive, and you failed? I'm not the one who put cameras in his room. That stopped him. Hale's expression shifted just slightly. What cameras? Lena pointed to the corner. The mounting bracket was still there, but the camera itself was gone, ripped out recently, wires still dangling. Someone's been watching, Lena said quietly, and someone just cleaned up their trail. Hale pulled out his phone, barking orders to someone on the other end. Vance moved to the bracket, examining it with gloved hands, and Lena stood in the center of the room, replaying everything in her head. The phone call, Riker's voice, the warning. This wasn't just about Danny, this was about her. "We need to talk," she said to Vance. "Later. Right now." Now. Lena's tone left no room for argument. "Somewhere private." Vance studied her for a moment, then nodded. They left Hale arguing with his phone and walked down the hallway to an empty conference room. Vance locked the door. "What's going on, Lena?" "I got a call, right before Danny was killed." "From who?" Lena hesitated. Saying it out loud would make it real, would open doors she'd spent 6 years keeping closed. But Danny was dead, and whoever did it knew exactly who she was. "James Riker!" Vance went pale. "That's not possible." "I know." "Riker died in Kandahar. You were there. You confirmed the body." "I confirmed what was left of the building. There wasn't much body to confirm." "So you think—" "What? He faked his death?" "I think someone wants me to believe he's alive, and they use that to distract me long enough to kill the witness." Vance sat down heavily, processing. If Riker is alive, if he's involved in this, then everything we thought we knew about that operation is wrong. Lena leaned against the wall, her mind racing. He knew about the attack tonight before it happened. He knew Danny was the target, and he knew I'd be here. How? That's the question. Vance was quiet for a moment, then looked up. "You need protection." "No." "Lena, I need answers. Protection won't give me that." "It'll keep you alive. So will finding out who's behind this." Before Vance could argue, an explosion rocked the building. Not close, somewhere on the lower floors, but powerful enough to rattle the windows and set off alarms throughout the hospital. Vance was on her feet instantly, radio in hand. "All units, report." Static. Then a voice, panicked and breathless. "Parking garage, level 2, vehicle bomb, multiple casualties." The transmission cut off in a burst of noise. Vance ran for the door. Lena was right behind her. They hit the stairs at full speed, taking them 3 at a time, the smell of smoke already filtering up through the stairwell. By the time they reached the second level of the parking garage, the scene was chaos. A vehicle, looked like the same black SUV Lena had seen leaving, was now a twisted wreck of metal and fire. 2 soldiers were down, one not moving, the other clutching his leg and screaming. A third was trying to drag them both away from the flames. Lena didn't think. She just moved. She grabbed the injured soldier under the arms, hauling him back while Vance went for the unconscious one. The heat was intense, the smoke thick and choking. Lena's eyes burned, her lungs screamed, but she kept moving until they were clear of the blast radius. Then she dropped to her knees beside the injured soldier and started working. Arterial bleed in the left thigh, shrapnel embedded in the calf, possible fracture. She ripped off her jacket, wadded it up, and pressed it hard against the wound. The soldier screamed, I know, stay with me." Blood soaked through the fabric in seconds. Too much blood. She needed a tourniquet, needed pressure, needed equipment she didn't have. Her hands worked on autopilot, years of training taking over, but the math was brutal. He had maybe 3 minutes before he bled out. "Medic," she shouted. "I need a medic now." One appeared from the stairwell, kit in hand. Together they got the bleeding under control, got an IV started, got him stable enough to move. Vance was doing chest compressions on the other soldier, her face set in grim determination. Come on! The medic took over. Vance stepped back, hands covered in blood, breathing hard. She looked at Lena. They were checking the vehicle. The one you ID'd. It was rigged. Obviously. Not obviously, specifically. Lena stood, her hands still sticky with blood. That bomb wasn't meant for them. It was meant to destroy evidence. Or send a message. Maybe both. Around them, more personnel flooded in. Firefighters, EMTs, soldiers establishing a perimeter. The garage was a disaster zone, smoke billowing from the wreckage, sprinklers raining down, alarms shrieking. And through it all, Lena's mind kept circling back to one thought. This was too coordinated, too precise. Someone inside was helping them. She pulled out her phone, checked the unknown number from earlier. Still no identifying information. She hit redial anyway. It rang once, twice, then a voice, different from before but just as cold. "You should have stayed dead." Who is this? Someone who knows what you did, what you are. And what's that? A killer pretending to be a hero, but pretending doesn't change the truth. Lena's jaw tightened. "If you've got something to say, say it." "I already did. You just weren't listening." The voice paused. "Danny Reeves was a pawn. So are you. The difference is he figured it out too late." "And you're what? The player?" "I'm the board." A click. "Check the morgue, Lena. You might recognize an old friend." The line went dead. Lena stared at her phone, then looked at Vance. "I need to get to the morgue. Now. We're in the middle of now." Vance opened her mouth to argue, saw Lena's expression, and shut it. They took the service elevator down to the basement, the ride silent except for the hum of machinery and the distant wail of sirens. The morgue was at the end of a long hallway, fluorescent lights flickering, the kind of place that felt wrong even when nothing was. The attendant was a middle-aged woman with tired eyes and a permanent frown. She looked up as they entered. "Help you?" Vance flashed her ID. "We need to see recent admissions, last 6 hours." "All of them?" "All of them." The attendant sighed, pulling up a tablet. "We've got 12, 6 from the shooting, 3 from the explosion, 2 car accidents, and 1 John Doe brought in about 2 hours ago." "John Doe?" Lena stepped forward. "Where'd he come from?" "Found in an alley downtown. No ID, no wallet, no nothing. Looked like he'd been dead a few days." "Show me." The attendant led them to the cold storage, pulling out drawer number 7. The body inside was male, late 30s, with a face Lena knew intimately, because she'd watched it die 6 years ago. James Riker lay on the metal slab, skin pale and waxy, eyes closed, chest still. Dead for real this time. Or at least, that's what it looked like. But Lena had been fooled before. She stepped closer, studying his face. The scar above his left eyebrow, same. The tattoo on his forearm, same. Even the crooked nose from a bar fight in Berlin, same. "Is that him?" Vance asked quietly. "I don't know." "You don't know?" "I mean, it looks like him. Exactly like him. But so did the body in Kandahar." Vance pulled on gloves, examining the corpse herself. No obvious wounds, no trauma. If he died a few days ago, cause of death would have been, what, natural? There's no such thing as natural in this line of work. The attendant was watching them with growing confusion. "You two know this guy?" "Maybe," Lena said. "Can you run prints?" "Already did. Came back negative. No match in any database." "What about dental?" "Haven't gotten that far yet." "Do it. Now." The attendant looked at Vance, who nodded. As she left to pull the records, Lena turned back to the body. She reached out, almost touched Riker's hand, then stopped. If this was him, if he was really dead, then who called her? And if this wasn't him, if this was another fake, then where the hell was he? Her phone buzzed, text message. Same unknown number. "Told you. Old friends. Now check his pockets." Lena hesitated, then reached into the body bag, searching the corpse's clothing. Nothing in the jacket, nothing in the pants. Then her fingers found something in the inner pocket, a folded piece of paper. She pulled it out, unfolded it. It was a photograph. Old, faded, creased from being carried for years. It showed a team of soldiers, 8 of them, standing in front of a Humvee somewhere in the desert. Lena recognized every face, because she was in it. Front row, second from the left, looking younger and harder and nothing like the person she was now. Beside her stood Riker, his arm around her shoulders, both of them grinning like idiots. And behind them, written in Riker's handwriting, the ones who made it out. Except they hadn't all made it out. 3 of those soldiers died in Kandahar. 2 more killed themselves in the years after. 1 was in a psych ward somewhere. And the last, Lena flipped the photo over. On the back, fresh ink, recent handwriting, "You're next." Vance was reading over her shoulder. "What the hell is this?" "A hit list. Someone's targeting your old team? Someone already has. Lena pulled out her phone, scrolling through contacts she hadn't touched in years. Marcus Webb, suicide 3 years ago, told everyone it was PTSD. Sarah Kim, car accident 2 years ago. Single vehicle, no witnesses. Derek Powell, psych ward, but last I heard he was stable. And now Riker. And now me. Vance grabbed her arm. We're putting you in protective custody, right now. That won't help. It'll keep you alive. For how long? Until whoever's doing this decides to blow up another building? Until they kill more innocent people just to get to me? Lena pulled away. No. The only way to stop this is to find out who's behind it. And how do you plan to do that? By doing what I should have done 6 years ago. Lena pocketed the photograph. I'm going to find out what really happened in Kandahar. Before Vance could respond, the attendant came back holding a file. Her face was pale. The dental records, they're a match. This is James Riker, officially. Lena stared at the body. When did he die? Based on decomp, 48 to 72 hours ago. So he was dead before he called me. The attendant blinked. I'm sorry, what? Nothing. Lena turned to Vance. I need access to the Kandahar files, everything from that operation. Mission logs, personnel records, after-action reports. Those are classified. Then declassify them. It's not that simple. Make it simple. Lena's voice was hard. Someone is killing off my team. Someone who knows exactly what happened that night. Who was there? Who survived? The answers are in those files. Vance was quiet for a long moment, then nodded. I'll make some calls. But Lena, if we do this, if we start digging into Kandahar, there's no going back. People buried that operation for a reason. Yeah, and I'm going to find out why. They took the elevator back up, the walls pressing in, the air thick with things unsaid. When they reached the main floor, the hospital was in full lockdown. Soldiers at every entrance, federal agents interviewing staff, news helicopters circling overhead. Lena's phone buzzed again. Another text. You're getting closer. Keep going. She stopped walking. Vance noticed, turned back. What? Whoever's doing this, they're watching. Right now. Vance's hand went to her sidearm, eyes scanning the hallway. Where? I don't know, but they knew I'd find Riker's body. Knew I'd check his pockets. Knew I'd ask about Kandahar. Lena looked up, searching for cameras. They're feeding me information. Breadcrumbs. Why? Because they want me to follow them. Into a trap? Into the truth. Lena started walking again, and sometimes those are the same thing. They made it to Vance's makeshift command center, a converted conference room filled with laptops, radio equipment, and stressed-looking soldiers. Vance pulled up a secure terminal, typing in credentials that opened databases Lena hadn't seen in years. Kandahar operation 6 years ago, Vance muttered, scrolling through files. Black site, off book, no official records. Except there are official records. They're just buried under so many clearance levels that... Here. A file opened. Mission designation, Nightfall. Objective, extract high-value target from insurgent compound. Team, 8 operators. Status, compromised. Lena leaned over Vance's shoulder, reading fast. The official report matched what she remembered. Target secured, compound rigged to blow, team caught in the explosion. 3 KIA, 5 wounded. Mission classified as partial success. But there were gaps. Whole sections redacted. Times that didn't add up. And a note at the bottom, added years after the fact. See attached debriefing, eyes only. Open it, Lena said. Vance clicked. The file required additional authentication. She entered her credentials. Access denied. That's above my clearance. Try mine. See? Lena pulled out an old ID card she'd kept in her wallet. The kind of thing she should have destroyed years ago, but couldn't bring herself to. Vance swiped it. Access granted. The debriefing file opened, and what Lena saw made her blood run cold. It was a transcript, an interrogation, and the subject was listed as Operative Riker, James, deceased. Except the timestamp was 6 months after Kandahar. That's impossible, Vance breathed. Lena kept reading. The interrogator was unlisted, the location redacted, but the content was clear. Riker had survived the explosion. He'd been picked up by an unknown entity, debriefed, and then the file ended, just cut off mid-sentence. "Where's the rest?" Lena demanded. "There is no rest. This is it." "Bullshit. Someone pulled it." Vance checked the file properties. "Last accessed." She stopped. 3 hours ago." "Who?" "User ID is scrambled, but the IP address—" Vance traced it. "It's coming from inside this building." They stared at each other. "The leak," Lena said quietly. "They're here. Right now." Vance was already on her radio. "All units, I need a full personnel check. Anyone who accessed classified systems in the last 4 hours, I want names and locations. And lock down all network access. Now." Responses crackled back, voices tense and confused. While Vance coordinated, Lena's mind raced ahead. Whoever was doing this had access to military databases, could move through the hospital undetected, and knew enough about the Kandahar operation to weaponize it. That narrowed the suspects to a very short list. Her phone buzzed. Not a text this time. A video file. She opened it. The footage was grainy, night vision green, shot from a helmet cam. It showed a compound in the desert, walls blown open, fires burning. A team moving through the wreckage, weapons up, voices calling out in the chaos. Lena recognized the voices, recognized the movements. This was Kandahar. The night everything went wrong. The camera swung toward a doorway. Inside, a figure was kneeling beside someone on the ground. The someone was Riker, his face covered in blood, his chest barely moving. And the figure leaning over him, checking his pulse, making a decision, was Lena. The video cut to black. Then text appeared. "You left him to die." Lena's hands were shaking. She forced them still, replaying the footage in her mind. She remembered that moment, remembered checking Riker, finding no pulse, hearing the building start to collapse, remembered making the call to leave him and get the rest of the team out. It was the right call. The only call. Except Riker had survived. Somehow. And someone wanted her to feel responsible for what came after. "Lena?" Vance was watching her. "What was that?" "Proof." "Of what?" "That I'm being set up." Lena handed over her phone. Vance watched the footage, her expression darkening. "This doesn't prove anything except you followed protocol. Confirmed deceased, moved on. That's textbook." "Then why does it feel like I'm the one being blamed?" Before Vance could answer, one of her soldiers burst through the door. "Ma'am, we've got a situation. Agent Hale just tried to leave the building with classified materials. Guards stopped him at the exit." Vance was on her feet. "Where is he now?" "Holding room, level 1. But ma'am, he's demanding a lawyer and making a lot of noise about jurisdiction." Vance and Lena exchanged a look, then moved. They found Hale in a converted storage room, handcuffed to a chair, his expensive suit rumpled and his face red with fury. "This is illegal detention. I'm a federal agent." "You're a suspect," Vance cut him off. "And until I know what you were doing with files marked above your clearance, you're staying right here." "I don't answer to you." "Tonight you do." Vance nodded to the guard, who placed a laptop on the table. "We pulled your access logs. You've been digging into Operation Nightfall for the past 2 weeks. Care to explain why?" Hale's jaw tightened. "That's classified." "So is breaking into a military database without authorization." "I had authorization." "From who?" He didn't answer. Lena stepped forward, leaning on the table. "You knew about Riker. You knew he was alive." "I knew someone was using his identity." "That's different." "How long?" 6 months. Maybe more. We've been tracking a network, weapons, intelligence, money, all flowing through channels that shouldn't exist. And every time we got close, someone with Riker's credentials would pop up and redirect everything. You think he faked his death to go underground? I think someone very smart is using a dead man's identity to move pieces on a very large board. And I think you, he looked at Lena, were always meant to be one of those pieces. Meaning what? Meaning everything that's happened tonight, the attack, the witness, the bomb, it's all designed to pull you out of hiding, to make you visible again. Hale leaned forward as much as the handcuffs would allow. Someone wants you back in play. The question is why? Lena's mind was already running through possibilities. If this was about her, if she was the real target, then Danny's death was just the opening move. The explosion was pressure. and Riker's body. "The morgue," she said suddenly. "We need to get back to the morgue, now." They ran. Vance, Lena, 2 soldiers. Back down to the basement, back through the flickering hallway, back to the cold storage where Riker's body should have been waiting. Drawer 7 was open. Empty. The body was gone. And on the metal slab, written in what looked like blood, "Checkmate." The morgue attendant was slumped in the corner, unconscious but breathing, a dark bruise spreading across her temple. Vance knelt beside her, checking vitals, while Lena stared at the empty drawer and the message scrawled in blood. "How long?" Lena asked. One of the soldiers checked the security feed on his tablet. "Camera loop started 18 minutes ago. Whoever took the body knew exactly when we'd be upstairs with Hale." "This was a distraction," Lena turned to Vance. "They wanted us focused on him while they moved the real piece." "But why take the body? If Riker's already dead?" "Because he's not." Lena's voice was flat, certain. "That wasn't Riker in the drawer. It was someone made to look like him. Good enough to pass a visual, maybe even prints, if they were copied correctly. But whoever's running this needed the body gone before we could do a full autopsy." Vance stood, her expression grim. "So Riker's alive. And he's here, in this building, has been the whole time." The realization settled over them like frost. Somewhere in Redwood Medical Center, in the chaos of lockdowns and investigations and frightened staff, a dead man was walking around, watching, waiting. Lena pulled out her phone, texting the unknown number. "I know you're here." The response came immediately. "Took you long enough." She typed back, "What do you want?" 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, "Same thing you do. The truth." Then, "Stop playing games. This isn't a game. It's a reckoning." A pause. "3rd floor. Radiology wing. Alone. You have 10 minutes. Lena showed the message to Vance, who immediately shook her head. "Absolutely not. This is a trap." "Everything's been a trap. Might as well spring it." "Lena, he's not going to hurt me. Not yet. He wants something first." "And if you're wrong?" Lena met her eyes. "Then you'll know where to find my body." She left before Vance could stop her, moving through the hallways with purpose. The hospital was still locked down, but she knew the routes that avoided the main checkpoints. Service corridors, staff-only stairwells, the kind of paths you learned after weeks of trying to stay invisible. The radiology wing was dark, most of the equipment powered down for the night. Lena walked slowly, her footsteps echoing on linoleum, her senses heightened. Every shadow could be a threat. Every sound could be a warning. "Hello, Lena!" The voice came from behind an MRI machine. She turned, and there he was. James Riker looked exactly like she remembered. Same sharp features, same cold eyes, same way of standing that suggested violence was always just one decision away. But he was older now, harder, with new scars across his knuckles and a hollowness to his face that hadn't been there before. "You're supposed to be dead," Lena said. "So are you." He stepped into the light, hands visible and empty. "Funny how that works." "Kandahar was a setup from the start." Riker's voice was matter-of-fact, like he was discussing the weather. "Our target wasn't an insurgent. He was an asset. Someone the Pentagon wanted disappeared because he knew too much about who was really funding the war." Lena's stomach dropped. "You're lying." "Am I? Think about it. Why send a Delta team for a simple extraction? Why classify the whole operation above top secret? Why bury the after-action report so deep even you couldn't find it?" He tilted his head. "Because they weren't extracting him. They were executing him. And we were the trigger. Then why blow the building with us inside?" "Because witnesses are inconvenient." Riker's expression didn't change. "The plan was simple. We go in, secure the target, eliminate him, and the building comes down on all of us. Clean, untraceable. No one left to ask questions. Except you survived. So did you. By accident. Was it?" Riker moved closer, his footsteps deliberate. "You were the medic. You triaged the team, decided who lived and who died. You left me in that building, Lena. Made the call to evacuate without checking if I still had a pulse. There was no pulse. The building was collapsing, and you ran." His voice was sharp now, cutting. "Don't rewrite history to make yourself feel better. You made a choice. I was collateral damage. Lena's hands clenched into fists. So this is revenge? You killed Danny, blew up the garage, stole a corpse, all because I followed protocol? No. I did all that because someone needs to answer for what happened in Kandahar. And since the people who gave the orders are untouchable, I'm starting with the people who carried them out. We didn't know, that's not an excuse. Riker pulled something from his jacket, a tablet. He tapped the screen, turned it toward her. Look. The screen showed a list, names, dates, causes of death. Lena recognized every entry. Marcus Webb, suicide. Sarah Kim, car accident. Derek Powell, psychiatric commitment. And at the bottom, newly added, Danny Reeves, homicide. You killed them, Lena breathed. All of them. I held them accountable. There's a difference. They were your teammates. They were tools, just like you, just like me. And when tools break, they get discarded. He pocketed the tablet. But you're different, Lena. You didn't just follow orders, you believed in them. You thought you were doing the right thing. I was trying to save lives. By choosing who deserved to be saved? Riker's smile was cold. How many people did you leave behind in that building? 3? 4? How many voices do you still hear when you try to sleep? Lena didn't answer. She didn't have to. The truth was written on her face. That's what I thought. Riker turned away, looking out through the dark windows. You want to know the real joke? The people who ordered that strike, the ones who decided 8 soldiers were acceptable losses, they're still in power, still making decisions, still sending people like us to die for reasons that won't matter in 10 years. So you became just like them. No, I became what they were afraid of. Someone who knows the truth and won't stay quiet. He looked back at her. And now you're going to help me expose it. I'm not helping you do anything. You don't have a choice. I've already set it in motion. Riker pulled out his phone, tapped the screen. In about 5 minutes, every major news outlet in the country is going to receive a file. Mission logs, orders, communications, everything from Kandahar, including footage of what really happened in that compound. Lena's blood went cold. You're bluffing. Am I? He showed her the phone. A countdown timer, 4 minutes, 37 seconds. Once this goes public, there won't be any hiding. Not for you, not for the people who sent us there. Everyone gets exposed. That'll destroy you too. I'm already destroyed. This is just choosing how the pieces fall. Lena stepped closer, her voice low and dangerous. People will die if you release that. Operatives in the field, sources, networks we've built. Good. Maybe then someone will finally ask why we built them in the first place. This isn't justice, it's revenge. Call it whatever helps you sleep. Riker's finger hovered over the phone. You've got 4 minutes to decide. Help me make sure the right people go down or watch it all burn and hope you're not standing too close when it does. Lena's mind raced. If he released those files, it wouldn't just expose the Kandahar operation. It would compromise active missions, endanger lives, and destroy careers of people who had nothing to do with what happened 6 years ago. The collateral damage would be catastrophic. But if she stopped him, if she let this stay buried, then the people who ordered that strike would never face consequences. They'd keep operating, keep making decisions, keep treating soldiers like disposable assets. There was no good choice, just different kinds of bad. There's another option, she said quietly. Oh? You want accountability? Real accountability? Then do it right. Not through the media, not through leaks. Through the system. Riker laughed. The system protects itself, you know that. Not if we force its hand. Lena pulled out her own phone. Vance has connections. So does Hale, even if he's dirty. We get them to push from inside, use what you have as leverage, and we make sure the right people answer for this. And you think they'll actually follow through? I think they will if the alternative is you burning down the entire intelligence apparatus on live television. Lena met his eyes. You want justice? Fine. But don't burn down the house to kill the rats. There are people in that house worth saving. For a long moment, Riker just stared at her. Then he looked at his phone. 3 minutes, 12 seconds. You're asking me to trust the same people who tried to kill me. No, I'm asking you to trust me. Why would I do that? Because I'm the one who came here alone. I'm the one standing in front of you instead of calling in an airstrike. And I'm the one telling you that what happened in Kandahar was wrong and someone needs to pay. But not like this. Riker's finger was still on the screen. 2 minutes, 43 seconds. If I cancel this and they bury it anyway, I'm done. No second chances. Then make sure they don't bury it. Be loud, be public, but be smart. Lena took a breath. You survived Kandahar for a reason. Don't waste it on a suicide run. The timer ticked down. 2 minutes, 150, 140. Then Riker's finger moved and the countdown stopped. He looked up, his expression unreadable. You just saved a lot of people. Or condemned them to more of the same. Maybe. He pocketed the phone. But at least now we find out together. Before Lena could respond, the lights went out. Not just in radiology, throughout the entire building. Emergency lighting kicked in after a few seconds, bathing everything in that familiar red glow. But the main power was gone. Riker's hand went to his waistband. Lena tensed, ready to move, but he pulled out a pistol and offered it to her grip first. You're going to need this. What did you do? Nothing. This isn't me. He moved to the window, looking out at the parking lot. But I know who it is. Lena joined him. Outside, vehicles were pulling up. Not military, not police. Black SUVs, tinted windows, no markings. Men in tactical gear pouring out, moving with professional efficiency toward the hospital entrances. Who are they? The people who gave the orders in Kandahar, the ones who don't want the truth getting out. Riker checked his weapon. I told you they were untouchable. I didn't say they'd let us walk away. You knew they'd come. I counted on it. Difference is, now we're ready. Lena took the pistol, checked the magazine. 12 rounds. Not enough for what was coming, but better than nothing. How many? 20, maybe 30? Trained, experienced, and they won't hesitate to kill everyone in this building if that's what it takes to keep us quiet. Then we get everyone out. There's no time. They'll lock down the exits, eliminate witnesses, and disappear before anyone knows what happened. Riker moved toward the door. Our only play is to make so much noise they can't sweep this under the rug. How? He smiled, and it was the same reckless grin she remembered from 6 years ago. We give them what they came for. Us. But on our terms. They moved fast through the service corridors, Riker leading with the confidence of someone who'd planned for this. Lena followed, her mind working through scenarios. If these were the people behind Kandahar, they had resources, connections, and the kind of power that made problems disappear. But they also had something to lose. Exposure, public scrutiny. The one thing that scared people in power more than violence. They reached the administrative wing where Vance had set up her command center. The door was locked. Riker kicked it open. Inside, Vance was on the phone, barking orders, surrounded by soldiers checking equipment and loading weapons. She looked up as Lena and Riker entered, her hand going to her sidearm. Stand down, Lena said quickly. He's with me. That's the man who... I know what he did. Right now he's the least of our problems. Lena pointed toward the windows. We've got hostiles inbound. Professional contractors, probably 30 strong. They're here to clean up loose ends. Vance moved to the window, looked out, cursed. Who authorized this? No one you can reach. Riker stepped forward. These people operate outside the chain of command. They're here to eliminate everyone who knows about Kandahar, starting with us. Then we evacuate. They'll pick us off in the parking lot. We need to fortify, make contact with outside authorities, and hold until help arrives. Vance was already moving, snapping orders to her team. Lock down all entrances, get the staff into secure areas, and someone get me a line to Northcom. I don't care if you have to patch through a satellite, just do it. Lena turned to Riker. You have a plan beyond hold and hope? Always. He pulled out the tablet from earlier. Those files I was going to release? I sent them to a dead man switch. If I don't check in every 12 hours, they go public automatically, which means these contractors can't just kill us. They need to find and disable the switch first. Where is it? Somewhere they'll never think to look, which buys us time. He glanced at his watch. About 6 hours worth. Not much. It's enough. The building shook. Not an explosion, a breaching charge on one of the lower entrances. Shouts echoed up from the stairwells. The contractors were inside. Vance was on the radio coordinating defensive positions. All units, fall back to the second floor. Create choke points at stairwells and elevators. Rules of engagement. Return fire only, but make every shot count. Lena moved to help, but Riker grabbed her arm. We need to talk, now. Kinda busy. There's something you need to know. About Hale. That stopped her. What about him? He's not DIA. Never was. Riker pulled up a file on his tablet. His real name is Marcus Hale, former CIA, discharged 10 years ago for misappropriation of funds. He's been freelancing ever since, working for whoever pays best. And who's paying now? The same people sending those contractors. He's their inside man. Has been since this started. Riker met her eyes. He's the one who told them Danny Reeves was here. The one who set up the cameras. The one who made sure the witness died before he could talk. Lena's jaw clenched. Where is he now? Still in that holding room, probably calling his handlers, telling them exactly where to find us. She was moving before Riker finished talking, striding down the hallway toward the holding area with Riker close behind. The door was still guarded, but the soldier looked nervous. Ma'am, he's been making a lot of calls. Get out! Lena's voice left no room for argument. The soldier moved. She kicked the door open. Hale was on his phone, mid-conversation. He looked up, saw Lena and the pistol in her hand, and went pale. I'll call you back. He ended the call slowly, hands visible. Before you do something, you'll regret. Shut up! Lena crossed the room in 3 strides, grabbed his phone and threw it against the wall. It shattered. How long have you been working for them? I don't know what... She pressed the pistol against his temple. How long? 2 years. The words came out fast, panicked. They approached me after I left the agency. Offered money, protection, a way back in. I didn't know what they were planning. Bullshit. You've been feeding them information since you got here. You told them about Danny. You told them about the witness protection detail. You helped them get inside. They said it was just intelligence gathering. Danny Reeves is dead because of you. 2 soldiers were blown up because of you. And now there's 30 contractors in this building ready to kill everyone inside because you sold us out. Hale was shaking now, sweat beading on his forehead. I can help. I can call them off. You really think they're going to let you live after this? You're loose end number 1. That hit home. Hale's face crumpled. What do you want? Names. Who's running this? Who gave the Kandahar order? I don't have names, just a contact number, a courier drop. They're careful. Lena pushed the pistol harder. Not good enough. Wait, there's one person, the one who recruited me. High up in defense logistics. I met him twice, both times off book. Hale was talking fast now, desperate. His name is Garrett. Colonel Philip Garrett. He's the one coordinating everything. Riker stepped forward. Garrett was the operations officer for Kandahar, and he's been covering it up ever since. Lena lowered the pistol. Where is he now? I don't know. He moves around, never stays in one place. Gunfire erupted downstairs. Close. Vance's voice crackled over the radio. Contact on level 1. Multiple hostiles. They're pushing hard. Lena grabbed Hale by his collar, hauled him to his feet. You're coming with us, and if you try anything, I'll let them have you. They moved back to the command center where Vance was coordinating a fighting retreat. Her soldiers were falling back to the 2nd floor, using the stairwells as choke points. The contractors were advancing methodically, room by room. We can't hold this position much longer, Vance reported. They've got numbers and firepower. We need backup. It's coming, one of the comm specialists called out. Northcom is scrambling a response team, ETA 40 minutes. We don't have 40 minutes. Lena looked at Riker. The dead man switch. Can you trigger it manually? If I do, there's no taking it back. Do it anyway. We need those files public now before Garrett can spin this. Riker hesitated, then nodded. He pulled out his phone, entered a code. Done. Files go live in 60 seconds. Make it count. Lena turned to Vance. We need to get to the roof. It's the most defensible position, and it gives the response team a landing zone. Vance didn't argue. She started issuing orders, her team moving with practiced efficiency. They grabbed essential equipment, prepped for a fighting withdrawal, and started up the stairs. The contractors hit them halfway. The stairwell erupted into chaos, muzzle flashes, ricochets, shouting. Lena fired twice, saw one contractor go down, then ducked behind cover as return fire chewed through the wall beside her. Riker was moving up the stairs, providing covering fire. Vance's soldiers were doing the same, leapfrogging positions. They made it to the third floor, then the fourth. Every level was a fight, every corner a potential ambush. But they kept moving, kept pushing, driven by the knowledge that stopping meant dying. By the time they reached the roof access, Lena's ears were ringing and her hands were shaking from adrenaline. She shoved open the door, and cool night air hit her face. The roof was open, exposed, with nothing but HVAC units and satellite dishes for cover. Vance's soldiers spread out, setting up defensive positions. Below, the sound of boots on stairs echoed up. "They're coming," Riker said, reloading his weapon. "Let them." Lena checked her own ammunition. 4 rounds left. Not enough. Never enough. Vance was on the radio coordinating with the incoming response team. ETA 15 minutes, but they're requesting we mark our position with IR strobes. Do it. As the strobes were set up, Hale collapsed against an AC unit, breathing hard. "This is insane. We're going to die up here." "Maybe." Lena didn't look at him. "But at least the truth dies with us." "What truth? What was so important that everything?" Riker cut him off. "The lies, the cover-ups, the body count, all of it gets exposed in," he checked his phone, "about 30 seconds. Right on cue, his phone buzzed, then Lena's, then every phone on the roof, news alerts, notifications. The files were going live. Within seconds, every major outlet was reporting it. Classified military operation, unauthorized strike, American casualties. Cover-up. The details were flooding out faster than anyone could control, and somewhere, Colonel Philip Garrett was realizing his career was over. The door to the roof burst open. Contractors poured through, weapons up. Vance's soldiers opened fire. The contractors returned it. The roof became a killing zone. Lena dropped behind an HVAC unit, firing her last rounds, then switched to a weapon she'd pulled off a fallen soldier. The world narrowed to targets, angles, breath. She moved on instinct, the old training taking over completely. Beside her, Riker was doing the same. They'd fought together before, in another life. The rhythm was still there. One contractor went down, then another, but there were too many. Vance took a round to the shoulder and dropped. One of her soldiers went down hard, not moving. They were losing. Then the sky lit up with searchlights. Helicopters, 3 of them, military Blackhawks, their guns already spinning up. The contractors on the roof scattered, trying to find cover, but there was nowhere to go. The lead helicopter's PA system crackled to life. "All hostile forces, drop your weapons and get on the ground. You are surrounded. This is your only warning." Some of the contractors complied immediately, throwing down their weapons. Others tried to run and were cut down by precise fire from the helicopter's door gunners. Within 90 seconds, it was over. Soldiers fast roped down from the helicopters, securing the roof, zip-tying contractors, checking casualties. A medic rushed to Vance, who waved him off toward the more seriously wounded. Lena lowered her weapon, her hands finally starting to shake now that the immediate threat was over. Riker did the same, his expression unreadable. One of the helicopter commanders approached them, a colonel by his insignia. He looked at Lena, then at Riker, then at the chaos of the roof. "Which one of you released those files?" Riker raised his hand. "That would be me." The colonel's expression was hard. "You just compromised multiple active operations and endangered countless lives. I also exposed an illegal strike and a 6-year cover-up. You're welcome. You're under arrest. Get in line." Before the situation could escalate, another figure emerged from one of the helicopters. Older, wearing a general's stars, with the kind of face that had seen too much and forgiven too little. He walked straight to Lena. "Lieutenant Ward, it's been a long time." Lena recognized him instantly. General Marcus Thorne, her former commanding officer, the man who'd signed off on her discharge 6 years ago. "Sir?" "Still causing problems, I see." "Still fixing them, sir." Thorne's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "The files that just went public, they're genuine?" "Every word." "Then we have a situation." He turned to the colonel. "Release Captain Riker. He's under my jurisdiction now." "Sir, the protocols are about to change dramatically." Thorne pulled out his phone, showing a screen that made the colonel go pale. That's the Secretary of Defense on line 1, the Joint Chiefs on line 2, and about 40 senators on line 3. Every one of them wants answers about Kandahar, which means we need people who were actually there. He looked at Lena and Riker. You two just kicked a hornet's nest. Question is, are you ready to deal with what comes flying out? Lena met his eyes. We've been ready for 6 years, sir. Good. Because Colonel Philip Garrett just disappeared, vanished from his office 20 minutes ago. No one knows where he is, and I need him found before he buries himself so deep we'll never get answers. He won't run far, Riker said. Men like him never do. They think they're untouchable right up until the walls close in. Then find him, both of you. You've got 48 hours before this becomes a media circus we can't control. Thorne started to walk away, then stopped. And Ward, welcome back. You've been reinstated effective immediately, with full rank and benefits. Lena blinked. Sir, I didn't ask. You didn't have to. You earned it tonight. He nodded toward the chaos below. The medical teams treating wounded, the federal agents arresting contractors, the media helicopters circling like vultures. This is going to get ugly. I need people I can trust, people who won't fold when the pressure comes. He left before she could respond. Vance approached, her shoulder bandaged, but her expression alert. So, back in the game? Looks like it. How's it feel? Lena looked out over the Phoenix skyline, the city lights stretching to the horizon. Somewhere out there, Garrett was running. And somewhere else, the people who'd ordered the Kandahar strike were scrambling to cover their tracks. Ask me in 48 hours. Riker joined them, watching the same view. He's going to have help. Garrett didn't build this network alone. No, but he's the weak link. Lena turned to face him. You really think we can find him? I know we can. Riker pulled out his tablet one more time, showing a tracking interface. Because I've been monitoring his movements for 6 months, and I know exactly where he goes when things fall apart. The screen showed a location marker, blinking steadily in the Nevada desert. Where's that? A black site. Off the books, no official oversight. It's where they took me after Kandahar, where they debriefed me, tried to turn me, and eventually decided I knew too much. His expression darkened. And it's where Garrett's been running his operation from since the beginning. Lena studied the screen. The facility was remote, heavily guarded, designed to be invisible. Getting in would be suicide, which meant it was exactly where they needed to go. We'll need support, equipment, a plan that doesn't end with us dead in the desert. Already working on it, Riker glanced at Vance. Think your people can provide air cover? For a classified black site? That's going to require authorization I don't have. You do now. General Thorne had returned holding a tablet. I just got approval from JSOC. You want to raid that facility? You've got everything you need. Lena looked at the screen, then at Riker, then at the mess they'd created on the roof of Redwood Medical Center. 48 hours to find Garrett. 48 hours to get answers. 48 hours to finish what started 6 years ago in Kandahar. When do we leave? Dawn. Thorne's expression was grim. And understand something. Garrett's not going to surrender. He built this network. He'll die protecting it. Which means when you find him, you'll have to make a choice. What choice? Whether you're there for justice or revenge. Because in my experience, those two things rarely end up in the same place. He walked away, leaving them alone on the roof. Riker looked at Lena. He's right, you know. This could go sideways fast. Then we make sure it doesn't. And if Garrett makes us choose between bringing him in alive and making sure he can't hurt anyone else? Lena was quiet for a long moment, thinking about Danny Reeves dying in his hospital bed, about the soldiers who'd been blown up in the parking garage, about everyone who'd paid the price for someone else's decisions. Then we do what we should have done 6 years ago, she said finally. We finish it. Below them, the hospital was swarming with activity. Federal agents taking statements, military police securing evidence, paramedics treating the wounded. And somewhere in that chaos, the story was leaking out. The truth about Kandahar, about the cover-up, about everything that had been buried. The world was about to learn what happened when people in power decided soldiers were expendable. And Lena Ward, the nurse they'd underestimated, the operative they'd tried to erase, was going to make sure everyone responsible answered for it. But first, She had to survive the next 48 hours. The helicopter that would take them to Nevada was already warming up on the far side of the roof. Riker started toward it, then paused. You know this might not end the way you want. Nothing ever does. So why keep going? Lena looked at him, and for the first time that night, something like a smile crossed her face. Because someone has to. They walked toward the helicopter together, two ghosts who'd refused to stay dead, heading into the desert to face the man who'd tried to bury them. And somewhere in that desert, in a facility that didn't officially exist, Colonel Philip Garrett was making his own preparations. Because he knew they were coming. And he'd been waiting for this moment longer than either of them realized. The helicopter cut through the pre-dawn darkness, its rotors slicing the air with a rhythmic thump that Lena felt in her chest. She sat in the jump seat, watching the desert sprawl below, endless black interrupted only by the occasional pinprick of light from some isolated homestead. Riker sat across from her, checking weapons with the kind of methodical focus that came from too many insertions like this one. Beside him, 3 operators from JSOC ran final equipment checks, their faces hidden behind night vision goggles and comm gear. Nobody spoke. There was nothing left to say. The pilot's voice crackled through Lena's headset. 5 minutes to drop zone. Weather's clear, no radar contacts. You'll have about 30 seconds on the ground before their perimeter sensors register the bird. Understood, Vance replied from the co-pilot seat. She'd insisted on coming despite the shoulder wound, claiming she'd earned the right to see this through. Nobody argued. Lena's stomach tightened as the helicopter began its descent. Below, the black site was invisible against the desert floor. No lights, no structures, just coordinates on a GPS screen and Riker's assurance that it existed. The facility was buried underground, accessible only through a reinforced entrance disguised as a maintenance shed for a non-existent water station. The kind of place that swallowed people whole and never gave them back. 30 seconds, the pilot called. The operators moved to the doors, hands on fast ropes. Lena joined them, her heart hammering but her hands steady. This was it. 6 years of running, hiding, pretending to be someone she wasn't. All of it came down to the next hour. The helicopter flared, hovering 10 feet above the sand. The ropes deployed. Go, 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 go! Lena dropped, her boots hitting desert hardpan with a jarring thud. She rolled, came up with her weapon ready, scanning for threats. The operators fanned out in a defensive perimeter. Riker landed beside her, already moving toward the shed 200 meters east. The helicopter lifted away, its noise fading into the distance until all that remained was silence and the whisper of wind across sand. Riker reached the shed first, pulling out a device that looked like a modified phone. He pressed it against the lock, and after 3 seconds, something inside clicked. The door swung open, revealing stairs leading down into darkness. Motion sensors are disabled for 60 seconds, he whispered. After that, they'll know we're here. They descended fast, night vision turning the world into shades of green. The stairwell went down 3 levels, ending at a blast door with a biometric scanner. One of the operators pulled out a bypass tool, military grade, the kind that cost more than most people made in a year, and attached it to the panel. 15 seconds, 20, 30, the door hissed open. Beyond was a corridor lit by red emergency lights, stretching 50 feet before branching left and right. Security cameras dotted the ceiling, their lenses tracking movement. Except they weren't tracking anymore. Riker's jamming device had fried their feeds. We've got maybe 5 minutes before someone realizes their system's compromised, Riker said. Control room is 2 levels down, central hub. That's where Garrett will be. They moved through the facility like ghosts, clearing rooms with brutal efficiency. Most were empty. Storage, server banks, unused barracks. But signs of recent occupation were everywhere, coffee cups still warm, computer screens left active, documents scattered across desks. Someone had left in a hurry. They found the first guard on the 2nd level. He was young, nervous, probably private security hired without too many questions asked. When he saw 5 armed operators materializing from the shadows, he dropped his weapon and raised his hands. Don't shoot, don't shoot. I'm just a contractor. I don't know what's going on. One of the JSOC operators zip-tied him and moved on. They found 3 more guards in the next corridor, all equally willing to surrender. Whatever Garrett was paying them, it wasn't enough to die for. The control room was exactly where Riker said it would be, behind a reinforced door at the end of a narrow hallway. Lena stacked up beside it with the operators, her weapon raised, her breathing controlled. Riker placed a breaching charge on the lock. On 3, 1, the door opened from the inside. Colonel Philip Garrett stood in the doorway, hands empty and visible, wearing fatigues that looked like they'd been slept in. He was older than his photos suggested, with gray hair and deep lines around his eyes. But there was no fear in his expression, just resignation. I was wondering when you'd show up. Lena's weapon didn't waver. On the ground, now. No need for that. I'm not armed. He stepped back, gesturing to the control room behind him. Come in, we should talk. We're past talking. Are we? Garrett's eyes fixed on her. Because I've been watching the news. Your files went public. Every outlet in the country is running the Kandahar story. Senators are calling for investigations. The Pentagon's in full damage control. He smiled, but there was no humor in it. You won, Lieutenant Ward. Congratulations. You're under arrest for conspiracy, murder, and about 40 other charges I'll let the lawyers figure out. I know, and I'm not resisting. Garrett clasped his hands behind his head. But before you take me in, you should know something. Kandahar wasn't my operation. I was following orders, same as you. Orders from who? People whose names won't appear in any investigation. People who'll walk away from this while I take the fall. He looked at Riker. You should understand that better than anyone, Captain. You've seen how this works. The ones who give the orders never pay the price. Riker's expression was stone. Then we make them. How? You think releasing those files changed anything? All you did was give them a scapegoat. Garrett gestured at himself. I'll be court-martialed, dishonorably discharged, maybe even imprisoned. And when the dust settles, the people who ordered that strike will still be making decisions, still sending soldiers to die for reasons that won't matter in 10 years. Lena stepped closer, her voice hard. So we should just let you go? Pretend 8 people didn't die because you decided their lives were worth less than your career? No. You should accept that justice isn't clean. It's messy and incomplete and rarely touches the people who deserve it most. Garrett lowered his hand slowly. But if you want the real architects of Kandahar, I can give them to you. Names, communications, proof of who authorized what. Everything you need to go after the ones actually responsible. In exchange for what? Immunity, protection, a quiet retirement somewhere far from all this. Lena laughed, sharp and bitter. You killed Danny Reeves. You sent contractors to slaughter an entire hospital. You spent 6 years covering up a massacre. And you think we're going to deal? I think you want the truth more than you want revenge, and I'm the only one who can give it to you. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Riker spoke, his voice quiet but cutting. You're right about one thing. The people who ordered Kandahar are going to walk away. They always do. He stepped forward. But you're not one of them. You're the guy who carried out their dirty work and thought that made you untouchable. Turns out, it just made you expendable. Garrett's composure cracked, just slightly. You don't understand? I understand perfectly. You chose to follow those orders. You chose to cover it up. You chose to kill anyone who got too close to the truth. Riker's expression was ice. And now you get to live with those choices. In a cell. For the rest of your life. Take him, Lena said to the operators. As they moved to secure Garrett, he lunged, not at them, but at the control panel behind him. His hand slammed down on a button, and alarms shrieked throughout the facility. Lockdown protocol initiated, a computerized voice announced. All exits sealing, self-destruct sequence activated. The operators grabbed Garrett, slamming him against the wall. Lena spun to the control panel, where a countdown timer had appeared on the main screen. 8 minutes. What did you do? She shouted. Garrett was smiling now, blood trickling from his split lip. Insurance. If I can't walk away from this, neither can you. Riker was already at the panel, fingers flying across the keyboard. It's encrypted, military grade, I can't crack it in 8 minutes. Then we evacuate, one of the operators said. The exits are sealed, Garrett said calmly. Blast doors, 3 feet of reinforced steel. By the time you breach them, you'll be vapor. Lena grabbed him by the collar. Give me the abort code. No. You'll die too. I was dead the moment those files went public. This way, I take you with me. Poetic, don't you think? Lena's mind raced. 8 minutes, no way out. A facility rigged to collapse on top of them. Unless... The ventilation system, she said suddenly. Where does it exhaust? Riker looked up from the panel. Surface level, probably 100 meters from the main entrance. But the ducts are too narrow. For a person, maybe, but not for a signal. She turned to one of the operators. You have a radio beacon in your kit? Standard issue, yeah, but activate it and send it up through the vents. Vance is monitoring from the helicopter. She sees the beacon. She knows to extract from that position. That still doesn't get us out. No, but it tells her where to dig when this place collapses. Lena looked at the timer. 7 minutes. And maybe we survive long enough to be found. It was a terrible plan. Survival rates for building collapses were abysmal, even with trained personnel. But it was better than standing around waiting to die. The operator activated the beacon, found a vent access panel, and shoved the device inside. 30 seconds later, it disappeared up the shaft. Now what? Riker asked. Now we find the deepest, most reinforced room in this facility and pray it's enough. They ran. Through corridors, down stairwells, past abandoned offices and locked doors. Garrett. They dragged along, zip-tied and stumbling. The facility was a maze, but Riker seemed to know it by instinct, turning left when logic said right, choosing stairwells that led deeper instead of up. 5 minutes left. They found what they were looking for on the lowest level, a storage vault with walls 2 feet thick, designed to survive anything short of a direct nuclear strike. The operators hauled Garrett inside, then started piling anything heavy against the walls to create additional barriers. 4 minutes. Lena helped, moving boxes of files and equipment, her muscles screaming. Beside her, Riker was doing the same, his face set in grim determination. This might not work, he said quietly. I know. And if it doesn't, then we tried. That's more than we did 6 years ago. 3 minutes. They'd done everything they could. The vault was as reinforced as it was going to get. The operators took positions in the corners, bracing themselves against the walls. Lena sat beside Riker, her back to cold concrete, and for the first time that night allowed herself to feel the exhaustion seeping into her bones. 2 minutes. You know what's funny? Riker said. Nothing about this is funny. I spent 6 years planning revenge, tracking down everyone involved, building evidence, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And now that it's happening, he shook his head. I don't feel satisfied, just tired. That's because revenge doesn't fix anything. It just spreads the damage around. Then what does fix it? Lena thought about that, about Danny Reeves dying in his hospital bed, about the soldiers blown up in the parking garage, about all the people who'd paid the price for decisions made by men who'd never see a consequence. Nothing fixes it, she said finally. You just learn to live with it, and you make sure it doesn't happen again. 1 minute. The facility's alarms reached a crescendo, then cut off. In the sudden silence, Lena could hear her own heartbeat, fast and loud. 30 seconds. Garrett was watching them from across the vault, his expression unreadable. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I didn't want this. Any of it. But you did it anyway, Lena replied. That's what matters. 10 seconds. Riker reached over, took her hand. She squeezed back. 5, 4, 3, 2. The world exploded. The blast wave hit like a physical thing, slamming Lena into the wall with enough force to knock the air from her lungs. Sound became meaningless, just a roar that filled everything. The lights died. Dust and debris filled the air, choking, blinding. The building collapsed. Lena felt it happen in stages, the ceiling buckling, the walls shifting, thousands of tons of concrete and steel compressing down on top of them. The vault groaned under the pressure, metal screaming, but it held. For now. Time lost meaning. Seconds or minutes or hours passed in darkness and noise and pain. Lena's shoulder felt wrong, dislocated, maybe broken. Her ears rang. She couldn't see, couldn't breathe properly. But she was alive. She thought she was alive. Slowly, the noise subsided. The shaking stopped, and in the absolute darkness of the vault, someone coughed. Sound off, Riker's voice, hoarse but functional. Here, Lena managed. Operator 1, functional. 2, here. Legs busted. 3, conscious, ribs are cracked. 4, a pause. 4's not moving. Silence. Then Riker again. Garrett? No response. Garrett, answer me. Still nothing. One of the operators activated a glow stick, and pale green light filled the vault. It was a disaster. The ceiling had buckled but not collapsed, creating a pocket of survivable space maybe 6 feet high. Equipment was scattered everywhere, some of it crushing under debris. And in the corner, Colonel Philip Garrett lay motionless, his neck bent at an angle that made checking for a pulse unnecessary. He's gone, the operator confirmed. Lena felt nothing. No satisfaction, no relief, just a dull acceptance that this was how it ended for men like Garrett, broken and forgotten in the dark. We need to get out, Riker said, already moving toward the vault door. It was jammed. The frame had warped from the blast, metal grinding against metal. 2 operators threw their weight against it, but it didn't budge. We're sealed in, one of them said. Then we dig. Riker pulled out his tactical knife, started working at the door frame. Vance saw the beacon. She knows where we are. We just have to survive long enough for rescue. They worked for hours. Lena lost track of time, focused only on the next handful of debris to clear, the next section of door frame to pry loose. Her shoulder was agony, but she pushed through it. They all did. The air was getting thin when they finally heard it. Voices from above, muffled but unmistakable. Drilling. Someone was drilling through the rubble. Here! Riker shouted, slamming his fist against the vault ceiling. We're here! The drilling intensified. Then light, actual daylight, pierced through a small hole in the ceiling. A voice called down, tinny but clear. This is search and rescue. How many survivors? 5, Lena called back. 1 critical, 2 injured, 2 functional. Copy that. We're widening the breach now. Stay clear of the center of the vault. It took another 2 hours to extract them. The rescue team worked with agonizing slowness, ensuring the rubble wouldn't shift and crush the vault. When they finally pulled Lena out into the desert sun, she had to close her eyes against the brightness. Vance was waiting, her arm in a fresh sling, her face tight with relief. You look like hell. Feel worse. Lena let the medics guide her to a waiting ambulance. Garrett? Dead. His body's still down there. Vance glanced at the collapsed facility. It'll take weeks to excavate everything, but we got enough from the control room servers before the blast. Emails, recordings, orders, everything Garrett said he'd give us. And you were right. The orders came from high up. Deputy Secretary of Defense, 2 senators, a CIA division chief. They're all being questioned now. By morning, half of them will be under arrest. Lena closed her eyes, letting that sink in. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was something. What about the team? She asked. The operators who came with us. 4 made it out, 1 didn't. Vance's expression was grim. Sergeant Marcus Cole, 28 years old, wife and 2 kids in Virginia. Another name for the list. Another family destroyed by decisions made in rooms where consequences didn't reach. Lena wanted to scream, wanted to rage against the unfairness of it all, but she was too tired, too empty. So she just nodded and let the medics work. 3 days later, Lena stood in front of a Senate subcommittee, her arm in a sling and her body covered in bruises that were just starting to fade to yellow and green. The hearing room was packed, senators, reporters, military brass, and an audience that spilled out into the hallways. The chairman, a silver-haired man with a voice like gravel, leaned into his microphone. Lieutenant Ward, you've given us extensive testimony about Operation Nightfall and the subsequent cover-up. But I want to ask you something more personal. What drives someone to risk everything? Career, life, freedom, just to expose the truth? Lena looked at him, then at the cameras broadcasting this to millions of people. She thought about Danny Reeves, dying alone in a hospital bed. About Marcus Cole, crushed under tons of rubble. About all the people who'd paid the price for someone else's lies. Because someone has to, she said simply. And if not us, then who? The room was silent. The people who ordered Kandahar, the people who tried to bury it, they made a calculation. They decided that some lives matter less than others, that soldiers are tools to be used and discarded, that the truth is negotiable. She leaned forward. I'm here to tell you it's not. Lives aren't statistics. Truth isn't optional. And when the people in power forget that, it's our job to remind them. The chairman nodded slowly. Thank you, Lieutenant. Your testimony has been invaluable. The hearing lasted 6 hours. By the end, 3 officials had resigned, 5 were under criminal investigation, and the entire military chain of command was being scrutinized like never before. It wasn't justice, not completely, but it was accountability. And that was a start. A month later, Lena walked back into Redline Medical Center for the first time since the attack. The ER had been rebuilt, the bullet holes patched, the blood scrubbed away. It looked almost normal. Almost. Monica was at the nurse's station, organizing charts. She looked up as Lena approached, and something complicated crossed her face. Ward, I heard you were back. Just visiting. Wanted to see how things were. Chaotic. We're short-staffed, everyone's still jumpy, and the media won't leave us alone. Monica paused. But we're managing. Lena nodded. An awkward silence stretched between them. Look, Monica said finally, I owe you an apology. The way I treated you before all this, it was unprofessional and wrong. You didn't know. That's not an excuse. I should have treated you better regardless. She met Lena's eyes. So I'm sorry, and if you ever want to come back, if you want your old job, it's yours. Lena looked around the ER, at the organized chaos, the constant motion, the lives being saved and lost in equal measure. A month ago, she would have said yes without hesitation, would have jumped at the chance to go back to being invisible. But that version of herself had died in the Nevada desert. I appreciate the offer, she said, but I'm going in a different direction. Back to the military? Something like that. General Thorne had offered her a position, oversight and accountability, making sure operations like Kandahar never happened again. It wasn't what she'd planned, but it felt right. I'm going to make sure the system works better for everyone. Monica smiled, genuine this time. That sounds like you. They shook hands and Lena left, but not before stopping by the trauma bay where Danny Reeves had died. Someone had left flowers there, a small memorial that the staff maintained. She stood in silence for a moment, then whispered, I'm sorry I couldn't save you, but I made sure they paid. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough, but it was something. Outside, Riker was waiting by a black SUV, government-issued, the kind that screamed federal agent. He'd been offered a similar position, working alongside Lena to clean up the mess they'd exposed. Ready? He asked. As I'll ever be. They drove through Phoenix as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The radio was playing news coverage of the latest Kandahar developments. Another official arrested, another hearing scheduled. The story wasn't going away. If anything, it was getting bigger. Think we made a difference? Riker asked. Lena thought about that. About all the lives that couldn't be brought back, all the damage that couldn't be undone. But also about the officials facing consequences, the soldiers being honored instead of forgotten, the system being forced to change. Yeah, she said. I think we did. They pulled up to a nondescript office building in downtown Phoenix, their new headquarters. Inside, a small team was already assembled, pulled from various agencies, all dedicated to the same goal: accountability. Vance was there, her shoulder healed, looking over case files. Dr. Cho had taken a consulting position, providing medical expertise for investigations. Even Monica had signed on part-time, tired of watching the system fail the people it was supposed to protect. They were building something small and fragile and probably doomed to fail eventually. But they were building it anyway, because someone had to. Lena took her seat at the conference table, looking around at the faces. Some familiar, some new, all determined. These were people who'd seen the worst of the system and decided to fight back. People who understood that change was slow and messy and incomplete, but necessary. People who'd been underestimated, overlooked, and written off, just like she had been. All right, she said, opening the first file. Let's get to work. And as the team dove into their cases, as the sun set over Phoenix and a new chapter began, Lena felt something she hadn't felt in 6 years. Hope. Not the naive kind that believed everything would be okay, but the harder, sharper kind that knew things were broken and committed to fixing them anyway. One case at a time, one truth at a time, one battle at a time. The people who'd tried to erase her had failed. The system that had used her and thrown her away was being forced to change. And the quiet nurse they'd all underestimated had become the most dangerous thing in the world. Someone who refused to stay silent. Somewhere in a forgotten desert, buried under tons of rubble, Colonel Garrett's body would eventually be recovered. There would be a quiet burial, no honors, his name stricken from all records except those documenting his crimes. Somewhere in Virginia, Sergeant Cole's family would receive his flag and his medals, and the knowledge that he'd died trying to expose the truth. Somewhere across the country, families of the Kandahar victims would finally get answers. Not closure, there was no such thing, but answers. And somewhere in Phoenix, in a small office with a team that shouldn't have existed, Lena Ward sat at a desk with her name on the door and a mission that would probably cost her everything she'd rebuilt. But this time, she wouldn't be alone. This time, she wouldn't be invisible. This time, when the powerful tried to silence the truth, there would be someone standing in their way, someone who'd learned the hard way that the only thing more dangerous than people with power was people with nothing left to lose. And Lena Ward had already lost everything that mattered, which meant she had absolutely nothing left to fear. The weak became strong, not by waiting for permission, but by refusing to stay down when the world tried to crush them. And the quiet ones, the overlooked, the underestimated, the invisible, they were the ones who changed everything, because no one saw them coming until it was too late.